Uprisers, hi, it is Trisha Lacroix once again with Sacred Uprising Institute and Retreat. And today we have Dr. Lisa, and she will be speaking about living your truth. So while I wait for her to jump on and some of our viewers to jump on, I just want to make some announcements. And as you know, we have a YouTube channel, and that YouTube channel is Sacred Uprising. You just have to look for the peony. And hold on, there we go. I think for the peony, all of our videos, all of our live videos are uploaded within 24 hours. And we have so many different speakers that are featured on there. Hey, Lisa.
Hello.
We have so many different speakers that are on there. We have, hi, Annette. We have information regarding our retreat on there. We have little 5-minute videos that just give information about crystals and grounding and all these different modalities that we can actually partake in by ourselves at home. So please go subscribe. In addition to that, we have our conference that is coming up, and that is September 18th, 19th, and 20th. Please go to sacreduprising.com. You can now purchase tickets. We should have our schedule up here on the website. It's already been submitted to Christopher Lee, who you all know that has been, who has spoken on here, as well as he's been designing the website. And that will, the schedule will be up by the end of this week, beginning of next week. Hey, Courtney. So, living your truth. I love this because you know what? Starting the spiritual journey is about living your truth, speaking your truth, being your truth. So I love this topic.
Thank you. I'm excited for this one too. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Hey, Courtney. Hey, everybody that's watching. Good to see you.
So let's start off with this.
Sure.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So what is living your truth, right? That's what a lot of people might be wondering. And so living your truth is the way that I conceptualize it is taking the time, doing the work to question everything that you have been taught. So we are indoctrinated from the time that we're born to believe certain things, to adopt certain things, to behave certain ways. And most of us never take the time to question those beliefs. So you think about the time like when a baby is born, they're immediately gendered. Their boys are given blue, girls are given pink, and they're taught, you know, boys do this, girls do that. And so we integrate those. We learn what we live.
Right, right.
And that goes for social, cultural conditioning, family conditioning, any of that stuff, religious upbringing. And to get to the space where you're really, truly liberated, I believe the first step is questioning everything that you've been taught. Why do I believe this? Where did I learn this? Is this true? Is it true for me?
Right. Even with religion, I mean, we're raised in a religion, and that's just what, you know, we take that throughout. Many of us take that throughout our lives. But is that truly what you believe? Is that truly, and it is, it's questioning everything, saying what works for me, what fits me.
Right. It's a process of deconstructing, like tearing down all of your beliefs. Now, sometimes if you don't do it on your own, right, if you don't take the time to do that work on your own and really literally question everything. Do I really like chocolate cake, or is that just what my mom always made, and so it's what I'm accustomed to? Do I really, I mean, that sounds like a really simple example, but it's valid.
Right.
I, for instance, learned as I explored this for myself that I really don't like cake at all. I actually prefer cheesecake. And so that was something that I was like, oh, okay, I would never, that's just something that had I not taken the time to go on this exploration of who am I really? What do I really want? What do I truly believe? I never would have reached that understanding about myself.
Right.
And it's definitely sure with religious stuff, because religious spirituality, because we're taught something. It's like if you go into a particular religion, there's traditions, right? You go into a church, and it could be that there's this happens, and then this happens, and then you kneel, and then you stand, and then you do this. And so you start to believe this is what spirituality looks like. This is, without ever questioning, does that really work for me?
Right, right.
Yeah.
I did do that in every area of my life. It went to the core of who I was. from, yes, the way I was raised, but even what, political beliefs, spiritual beliefs, the foundation of what did my family actually mean to me, and how was I supposed to flow within my family or not flow within my family. I had to go into what did I like, what I didn't like,
Right.
From music to the way that I dressed, everything. I had to go through everything.
Right. And that's such an important process to becoming the true, authentic expression of who you are. Now, some of us go through this process consciously and we're like, okay, let me examine these beliefs. Then there are people who unfortunately, or some of us have both of those experiences where something happens, a shattering type of experience that tears everything down. And then then we have to examine, like, wow, all of these things that I always thought to be true are not true. And now I have to examine and if this particular belief that I hold very dear is not true, what does that mean about these other beliefs? And doing that work and unpacking that is one of the most liberating exercises that you'll ever engage in, because it helps you to find the core of who you are before life taught you who to be. It's like going back to that sense of, when the divine order, when God, the source, universe, whatever you believe in, thought of Lisa Vallejos, what was that thought? What was that energy? What was the purpose? What was that little entity that was about to be birthed into this world supposed to bring into the world with me? And then life happens, and we're told you're not smart enough, you're not cute enough, you're not this, or you're too much of that. So it's a lot, especially with women, we're told a lot, these dual messages. You're too much of this, you're too loud, you're too rambunctious, you're too sexual, but you're not, spiritual enough, you're not demure enough, you're not humble enough, whatever it is. And so then we get in this space where we're like in this vice of like, oh my God, who am I supposed to be? How am I supposed to show up in the world? And this process of learning to live your truth is kind of just like shaking off all of that conditioning, all of that crap, and just being who you are, being who you're.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Courtney said something, even with men, I was always attracting the same kind of men just because of what was imprinted of me in my childhood and what I was taught that I was supposed to look for by my father's example, as well as the way that I was raised. And so, but to find your truth, sometimes you have to go within, you have to go into the silence, and you have to disengage from everything that is of the truth that you thought that you were, to find out what it truly is. And so when I went with men, I stopped dating altogether because I needed to change what I was attracting. Because while I didn't know exactly what wasn't untruth about it, I knew that it was untruth. Mm-hmm. And so I needed to distance myself and find me. So when we find ourselves, find our own truth, that's when we start attracting what our true identity is to us.
Well, and it happens with relationships too, because we're raised in a culture, most of us, if we're in the Western world, where it's like this idea of first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes the baby, and the baby carriage, right? And so we have this idea that relationships are all supposed to look one way, that they're supposed to be monogamous, that they're supposed to be this, that they're supposed to be that. And that isn't everybody's truth. That is not how everybody lives. There are people who do a variety of types of relationships. And if you can't open your mind to understand that there is no one right way, that everybody lives their, not everybody, but people have a right to live their own truth, and their truth may be having a non-conventional type of relationship that is open, or that is polyamorous, or it's polygamous, and it doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different than your truth. And when you can ascend to that space, it's a space of being understanding that there are that your truth is not somebody else's, and it's not right to not right, but it's not divine to impose your truth on somebody else.
Right. Agreed. Yeah, absolutely agreed.
So there's a lot of people that will take, objection to that, and they think that, it should be one man, one woman, whatever. That's you. That's your choice. That's your truth. It doesn't mean that it's has to be the same for everybody. And learning to hold that space for multiple truths, that there are many ways to be truthful. I'm not talking about integrity, because integrity is a different experience than living your truth. Yep. Being integrity means being whole. It means having a wholeness, and people that live in integrity will live their truth, even if other people don't like it, even if it makes other people uncomfortable. But what they won't do is impose their will on others by deceptive behaviors, or not being fully honest, or not being fully candid, and that those are two separate issues. So I wanted to make sure that I differentiated that, because some people might be like, oh, well, I'm just living my truth. But if your truth is imposing harm or ill will on other people, that's probably not the best way to approach your truth.
Right, exactly. No, I'm glad that you said that, because sometimes people will take that as their free ticket to do whatever they want. And, you know, we have to keep our moral compass. Yeah, defining our truth, you know what? And that's the whole thing, is that's the core of who we are. And when we're born, we're given so many different labels, like you said, and then we live within the realm of those labels as children and as young adults. And the rest of our life is about being an adult. Guess what, guys? Being an adult is about shedding the truths that were given to you and finding yourself. We think when we're in our 20s, oh, we're an adult, we found ourselves, we can do what we want. Well, you know, celebrate that moment, because it won't last, because the rest of your life is about shedding those truths and then finding yourself and truly living it.
Right. There's you know, this idea that I'm trying to think of the movie. It was one with Sandra Bullock, and she said, it was Hope Floats, and she said, you know, we think that childhood is like this great thing, but she says what childhood is like what you spend the rest of your life overcoming. And it's kind of funny because it really is that sense that you have to really do the work to overcome the things that you were told, the identities that were placed upon you. It's like you're, you know, an athlete because that's what your parents want you to be, or you're this because of this. And then you grow up and you're like, but I don't even really like that. Like, that doesn't even feel right to me. That's not right. So you start going back to, like, what was it that I loved to do when I was little, that I would spend hours and hours doing, and nobody ever had to tell me anything. You know, I was just engrossed in it. So finding those pieces of yourself again and rebuilding from that core, that center of, this is my truth. And sometimes the truth is, you know, it may be something very minimal when you're starting this. Sometimes I'm thinking of a client that I worked with a number of years ago that we were talking about this, you know, living your truth and who are you really. And this was a woman who had never even explored what her favorite ice cream was. This is how small we had to start, because she had parents that were very rigid, and they would order for her and give her what they thought she wanted. And so she grew up thinking this, and she went into what is that, Baskin Robbins once, and was like, I don't even know what I like. And so she tried like everything, like all of the flavors, and was like, I don't really like this flavor that I thought was my favorite. I actually like this one better. And that was such a huge breakthrough. And it seems like such a small thing, but when we've lived a life where our decisions have been made for us, and we've been told what to do and how to do it, how to be, all of those things, that finding that one little nugget of truth is like, you know, something to anchor your soul with. And you're like, okay, I know this truth, and if I can find this truth about me, then I can find the rest of my truths. And so that's really the foundational part, is this deconstruction of the identity that we have built, or that has been built for us, that we've bought into unquestioningly. And then the next part is learning how to live it. Because when you start becoming something other than what you were told you needed to be, or that you were told you were, it requires a whole new level of courage to be able to live that truth, to be able to walk away from the religions that you were taught to be in, to walk away from the values that were imposed upon you, and to create your own.
And, you know, it's sometimes, you know, the way that I was raised, there was such a huge gap to the way that my parents raised me versus what reality really was. So, like, I didn't know the value of $1, literally. You could have told me something. It was sort of like if you go and they say it's 10,000 yen. Okay, well, what does that mean? That's what I was like, $100. I had no concept, because I was raised in a very strict environment where it was about control. It was about, I was raised to be a pastor's wife or a missionary's wife. So I didn't need to know about what a credit report was, which I didn't even hear what the terminology credit report till I was 20. You know, I had no idea about anything. So even when it came to music, because I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music. So in my 20s, I was finding what I liked. It was, you know, even going to the theater, or going to you know, concerts, or whatever it may be. It was really truly finding what I liked, because I had never participated. I didn't understand what this whole new world was. So I went from, like you said, Baskin Robbins. I had to go through every area of my life and choose what I wanted. But the problem was this: I still had the aspects of myself that were still controlled because of the way I was raised. I hadn't gone through this purification of myself. It was still defined on what I was raised in rather than who I was at that moment, because I didn't know who I was. So I think for every level of life and every level that we go through, we are finding new truths about ourselves. Is it Rumi who said that God had a mirror, and the mirror was truth, and he dropped it on the ground and it shattered and broke, and then each one of us picked up a piece of that mirror and thought it was the full truth, but each of us have a little piece of it. And I find that, you know, my parents, for example, I have a lot of compassion for the way that they believe, how my mother believed. My father's passed away, but the way that my mother believes, because it's her truth, that's all she knows. And so she judges everybody based off of what her little sliver, her little mirror of the truth is, that she holds so tightly in her hand that it cuts her hands and it eliminates people from her life. Right. So I think that if we look at other people's truths that way, we can have more compassion for them, because we're all evolving, we're all changing, we're all shifting. Right.
And some people won't get it in this lifetime, and that's okay. You know, some people won't understand it, right. And that's just okay. Going to be to each their path, right? That's what Jeff Brown says, to each right. their path. And we just have to have the compassion to allow people to walk their own path, even if it's not in alignment with how we think, but also understanding that my truth, like you said, is a little tiny sliver of it. And so when I combine my truth with your truth, I might see a bigger picture, but it doesn't mean it's the full picture. And so it requires a sense of humility. I remember what I guess it was like I was just like halfway through my dissertation, and I had this experience. I went out to the ocean. I was living in the Bay Area at the time. I went out to Stinson Beach, and I remember just having the sense of just so much humility, because I would like think I'd had this great idea. I'd be like, oh, this was such a great idea, such a great insight. And then somebody on my committee would be like, well, see, so-and-so from like 1974, you know, and they had that same idea, that same thought. And I was like, I know nothing. I've never had an original idea in my entire life. You know, that was kind of where I went. And so I went out to the ocean, because I always get very grounded in nature. And I remember having this experience of like, of all of the knowledge in the world, if all of the knowledge in the world were the ocean, what I know can fit into like a thimble. And it was this most like, it was very humbling experience, but it was also very enlightening, because I was like, well, I don't have to know everything. There's way too much, but I just have to know what I know and my experience, and recognize that there are other people who are going to know something totally different, and I can benefit from their knowledge and they can benefit from mine, but none of us have to feel like we have to do everything or hold all of the truths. It's just, it's too much. Right. Courtney asked to speak on illusion. And I think what I would say to that, like the thought that just came up when you asked that question, was about the mirror. It's looking at ourselves in a mirror. We're actually not seeing ourselves as we are, because the reflection is inverted. And so we see ourselves in a, what's the word? What's the word, Trisha? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like, but it's the reflection. So we're not actually seeing, it's reflection. Right? So we don't see ourselves in the mirror the way that other people see us. And that's why when we look at photos, it looks, sometimes we're like, ooh, that's weird, because it doesn't look the way that we're accustomed to seeing ourselves in the mirror. Yes, distorted. Thank you. And distorted, so we are, that is what the illusion is the illusion is that we look out and we think we see things, but we don't understand that we're seeing life through the lens of our experience. And through the lens of how we are existing and what we've been taught. And so we go out and it's like putting pink sunglasses on. Do you remember that in the 90s when like pink sunglasses were cool? And so, or blue or whatever, they had the lens. And so you go out and you put these pink sunglasses on, everything has a pink tint. And you're like, wow, look at that flower. It's, you know, got a pink tint. No, it doesn't. It's just the way that you're seeing it, because the lens of your experience. And when you can understand that we all have the lens of our experience, and that it's an illusion that we think, because it's how we've seen the world, that's how everybody sees the world, but it's completely not accurate. It's just our lens. And so understanding I have certain experiences, yes, rose-colored glasses or blue or green or whatever, but having certain experiences that have informed the way that I see things and the way that I see truth doesn't necessarily make it accurate. It just means that that's the way that I have interpreted that truth. And that is the illusion.
Yeah, but I mean, even when I look in the mirror, when I get ready in the morning, you know, when I'm putting on my makeup, when I'm doing it, I see labels all over myself. I see a personality that I'm putting makeup on. It's not, I'm not seeing like somebody seeing me for the first time without the labels, without, you know, the rhetoric, without, you know, the journey that I've gone through. You know, people see us differently. It is, you know, they're seeing us in a more pure, you know, and that's one of the reasons, like when I give people a reading, I don't want to know anything because I don't want my reading to be tainted with a personality or what I already know about the person. I want to know nothing. That way it's a more pure reading. And I think that's the way. What about looking at ourselves that way? You know, let's erase what other people wrote from us. Let's take that whiteboard and all the ink our parents put on us, or our pastors, or our teachers, or our friends, or our family, whatever it may be, and erase that whiteboard. What is left? Right. What is left? Who are you?
Right. Well, and if we get down to the very core of it, what is left is the soul, the spirit that's one with the divine, that's one with everyone else, that we're all connected. And when we get down, when we distill it down to that, and then you look at the essence and the qualities of, well, what is the divine? Again, that depends on how you conceptualize it, but the way I conceptualize it is, you know, loving and having this like vast capacity for compassion and abundant and prosperous. And so when we strip away, and it's literally like I'm seeing in my mind's eye right now, just this kind of like unzipping the skin and like kind of shedding it down and being like, who is this at the core? And it's, we are the same as the divine, as God. We are having, you know, spiritual beings having the human experience. So when we strip away all of the crap and all of the stuff that's been put on us, then who are we? Well, I'm a soul having this human experience, and I'm abundant and I'm prosperous and I'm loving and I'm compassionate. I'm all of these things that are wonderful and beautiful. And that's where just the magic happens.
You know, yesterday we had I had a video with Mohammed. He is a tour guide in Egypt, and he also teaches here in the States via Zoom and Skype. He took us to, I believe it was he said, you know, many of us call it a temple, but it's, you know, they refer to it as a temple of the gods. And he was showing us some beautiful, beautiful things there. However, one thing he said that I think is really important during this conversation, he said that for Egypt, they don't believe it's a temple. It is the house of the universe. And he said, and we all are houses of the universe. We all have everything within us, everything that is of the universe. We've just put different personalities to it and having that experience. This is just the vehicle. And I love that terminology. It was so powerful when you talked about it, the house of the universe. That's who I am. And in it, the core, the foundation for me is love. And that is what I know that I have to live. And each of us, and we call it virtues, and each one of us has a virtue, a major virtue that would describe us. And I've tasked, I started tasking the teachers that are here on Sacred Uprising to give me, what is your virtue? I want to know what that is, because I mean, that is the core of who we are. That tells our story, not the life we've lived, not the way we were raised, but our virtue. That is what the cornerstone of our house of the universe.
Right. Well, I can tell you for sure that mine is definitely integrity. There's a woman I follow here on Facebook, Stacey Jordan Shelton, that I'm ordering one of her cups, and it says, integrity is my love language. And I'm like, yes, that's so it.
That's awesome.
It's that, you know, always coming back to my own truth and living that truth out. It's something that I've discovered in my years of therapy, and is that whenever I feel most out of alignment, it's because I'm not living my truth, or I'm aligning with someone who's not living their truth. And that makes me very, very uncomfortable. And so having understood that, I'm like, okay, well, now I know that I need to be in that kind of energy and being being solid in that space, because otherwise I'm not living my truth. If I'm participating in things that I feel are out of integrity or out of alignment, then I'm not living my truth. And so for me, it's like going back to that center. It's always coming back to that core of, okay, let me anchor myself to this integrity, to this living my truth, living out what's right for me. And when that is in alignment, every freaking thing else works. It just works. And I mean, that's what's so important about understanding this living your truth, is that it's like when you're living your truth, you don't have to go chase after things. You're not having to run after things. It's this space of just creating out of that space of wholeness, and you're living your truth, and things just literally start magnetizing to you. It's like, you know, clients show up and opportunities show up and things just start happening. And it's like, okay, cool. I guess this is how we're rolling today. Like, perfect. I'm good with that.
Right. Yeah. Annette just asked, what is the difference between a value and a virtue? Annette, you said you didn't know what your virtue is. I'm going to tease you here for a moment. Maybe grammar Nazi, something like that. I don't know. No, just kidding. A difference between a value and a virtue. I know you were talking about family. That family is something that, yeah, that is incredibly important. And maybe there's another way to describe it that would make it a virtue. For me, it's love. That was shown to me in my first meditation I did in 2012. Integrity. I have there's wisdom, there's patience, there's the things that, if you want to go back to the scriptures where it says think on these things. So I love integrity. I asked Bliss the other day. I asked Bliss what her virtue is, and it was funny because that day she was shown that her virtue is actually virtue. It's all of it. So I found that to be interesting. So I think that is because if you find what your virtue is, what your cornerstone, that everything in your life can emanate from there. Everything can just, it is what leads you home, knowing what that is. So I don't know, and maybe you and I should talk about it offline, Annette. I think that's a great question.
I think that values are individual characteristics. Your virtue is that core of who you are. It's that, those nesting dolls that you have where you can take the thing off and it's like, and it comes down to the little doll that's in the middle.
The Russian dolls.
Yeah, the Russian dolls. Yeah. That's your virtue. Your virtue is that if you stripped everything else away, what's in the middle, what remains. And that is like you said, your cornerstone. The cornerstone is the thing that gives the house all of its stability. It's the rock upon which everything else is built. I feel like I'm preaching right now. That's where we have to put on that thing. And so it's not going to be a variety of things. It's going to be one solid thing.
One thing.
So
yeah, what's interesting is even with I was talking, I had a beautiful initiation yesterday with a gentleman who's going to be teaching next week. His name is James Eisner. And he did a 3-hour initiation with me for the mother energy. And we were talking about when you astral travel, you go through these portals, and there's light language written in these portals. And what came to me is that what I've done in my house is sort of like what they've done in the temples of Egypt, because each temple has kind of it talks about many different things, but there are themes involved with what's written. Even when you astral travel, and I have in my house, everything is about love. Everything. It's like imprinted on me. I have it tattooed on me. I have it everywhere, and I want it. And I'm not perfect at it, but what I am striving to be, where everything comes from a point of love, that the way that I live my life comes from a point of love. And it's not just a romantic love. It's a universal love. It's a love for nature, for everything that just is, and love for everything that comes into my life, whether it's obstacles, whether it's the fire, whether it's joys, whatever it may be. So there's so much. I mean, kindness could be a virtue. Generosity could be a virtue. If you find what that is, and then you live from that state of truth, everything else will work itself out. Because when you're at your core vibration, everything that is not of that vibration will fall away.
Yeah, that's a great thing. Courtney asks, what do we do in a time where where lying and hiding is so prevalent? How do we stay encouraged? Courtney, what I would say to that, by the way, it's good to have you here. Thanks for being so
Yeah.
Is that we have, it's standing in that truth, standing in the integrity, in your own personal integrity and what you know, and to speak the truth with courage. You know, there's a saying like, speak the truth even if your voice shakes. Like, speak the truth. Be that one, not one, but be one of the voices that will continue to speak the truth. You said, like, I tweeted this the other day about our current administration, that it was the emperor, the reference the emperor's new clothes, and I tweeted that the other day, that it's like there's a handful of us that are like the little boy in that book that are like, yo, the emperor is naked, like, come on here, right? But there's a whole bunch of other people that are like, oh my gosh, this is so great, this is wonderful. And so those of us that are the little boy that's speaking out, saying, no, this person is naked. this is the truth. And we always have to continue to speak the truth, because we, in a time where lying and deception and dishonesty and mistruths and all of those things are happening, we have to have like John the Baptist, the voices in the wilderness that are going to continue speaking up and standing up and saying, no, that is not the truth, this is the truth, this is the truth, and being very vocal about it. This is not a time for us to be silent. I think especially right now, because of what's happening on a global scale, that we do need more and more people who are willing to live their truth, and who are willing to stand in their truth, and who are willing to courageously shout out the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it comes at a price. And that's how you know. Oh, and another way you know what your virtues are is, or your virtue is absolutely when you're willing to stand in what you know to be truth, no matter what it costs you.
Right. Yes.
That is something I think about. I'll make this very brief, but there was a number of years ago that I was enrolled in a graduate program that I've discovered, along with some other students, that had actually like deceived the students in marketing, and sold a program that didn't exist, basically. And when it came to light, I was all the way in my dissertation phase at that point. So I was about a year out from finishing. And it was such a bother to me. Like, I just couldn't deal with it. So I ended up withdrawing from that program. I left a doctorate program when I was a year away from finishing, transferred to a different program, and essentially had to start over because I was so disturbed by that. So it cost me like 3 years, a shit ton of money, a whole lot of stuff. But the point was basically that I was like, if I align with this and I continue in this program, I am selling myself out. And I couldn't do that. It was something that I just couldn't bear. Like, I couldn't have the weight of that within me. And so I did what I felt was right, which I left. And then, you know, eventually the long and short of it is that program got shut down because of people like me in particular, speaking the truth and making, you know, holding this program accountable. Right. So that is the way that you know your virtue is, like, when you're willing to like go to the mat, you're going to go all the way for it because you know that it's that important.
Yeah, you know what? It was interesting. Courtney said something, and it's already scrolled up, but something to the effect about living in a world where, you know, it's transparency and it's honesty. You know, we live in a world that is very 3D, and there are situations and people that don't live within that integrity. However, we can create our own universes. And I've got to say, I don't have people within my own universes that are not of integrity and not of truth and love and the things that are part of my moral compass. So I found that and I don't know what I did to do that. I don't know how that transpired. I know it's been a journey to get to this point, but it's really a beautiful reality because I don't have to fear. Now, when I do note that there is somebody that has come in and that there are those issues, it's very easily to lovingly create boundaries and to, you know, not allow them within that universe that I've created. So I know it can be done. It can be done, and it's a lot of detachment. It's a lot of detachment. Even with building this business, there's been opportunities for me to work with people that really challenged me in that area, and I've had to not align with those people, although they could be beneficial to Sacred Uprising, but because it has to not only be with people who live their truth, not just speak it, but live it, but also those that are get involved and those I align with, whether it might be marketing or whatever it may be, they have to have a similar vibration and a similar truth. Otherwise I cannot align to that.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's like, how did you create that? Your vibe attracts your tribe. I'm speaking in meme today. Yep. Apparently everything is just like memes. So, so that's really what it is.
Or as Courtney says, bumper stickers.
Yes. Okay. So we're talking in bumper stickers today. Cool. You guys can just like, we'll just type all these up and make a whole bunch of Sacred Uprising memes, and we'll just put them out there. Bumper stickers. But it really is about, some people will come into your energy field and they will vibe right out too, because they don't fit and they don't match. And once you become aware of them not matching, then it's cool. You're like, you know, one of the other teachers, Dacre, shared something a while back that said something like, you know, conscious women, like if you vibe into her world and you don't match, like she'll just, you know, you'll just vibe right out and she won't be mad. She'll just be like, all right, cool. And that's just how it goes. You know, you don't, it's not a big deal. So you asked about what's discerning versus judgment. So discerning is just recognizing what it is. It's like, I'm discerning that this person is X, Y, and Z, that this is their energy right now, not the core of who they are, because we have to be very clear that we're all of us at the core, even the people that we don't like, even the people that we don't care for, even the people that trigger us, they are also one with God, and they are also one with the divine, and they are also a pure soul having a human experience. And so keeping that in mind and recognizing, like, I love you as a soul and as a spirit, but as your human self right now, the way that you're showing up is not in alignment with me. Discerning behaviors, discerning energies is just noticing it. It's recognizing it without judgment. So judgment is assigning value to it. It's saying it's wrong, it's bad, it's this, it's that. No, it's not necessarily any of those things. Judging is saying you're wrong, you're bad, you're this. Acknowledging that behaviors are present is a different thing. But you can discern someone's energy and their behavior and the way that they're showing up in the world without judging them, without making them bad or making them wrong for it. It's just acknowledging this is what's happening. Acknowledging that someone like our current president is, you know, dishonest. We're not saying necessarily that he's a terrible person, although that may be how some people feel. It's just recognizing that these are behaviors, these are ways in which this person is showing up that don't align with me, and trying, and some people make it really, really a test to try and hold space for their divinity, even when their humanity sucks.
Right.
Or is showing up in sucky ways.
Yeah. There are people that I've had in my life where there are behaviors that don't align to mine, and that those are things I don't want to hear about, I don't want to participate in. However, some of them are in my inner universe because their value and the love I have for them, it doesn't matter. It just, you know, that's their issue. I don't agree with it. It doesn't vibe with me, but I love them. And it's the same way even with my mother. It's I have compassion for my mother, but I don't want her in my life. I will fight to the death for her to believe the way she believes, but I don't want it in my life. So it's just discerning the behaviors versus the person. I don't, even when my child does something or my children do something that I don't agree with, I'm not looking at them as that they're bad, or that, you know, it's not this judging thing. It is, okay, I don't agree with this behavior. This is something that, you know, we need to work on. When you're ready, when you see it's a problem, I will be there for you, but I'm not judging you based off of it. I just see it separate from you. It's a behavior. And the same with me. I have behaviors that I'm sure that others don't like or might, you know, that it doesn't vibe with them. But these are my friends, and they don't judge me as a whole based on it. We all are human. We all have things about ourselves. We all have our shadow, and we have to have the balance between the shadow and the light. We're never good. We're not perfect. And so if you can look at somebody with compassion instead of judging them, that is more healing to the whole. When we kick them out and start judging them, that only hurts. There's I'm sure many of you have seen the memes. There's a tribe that when somebody does something wrong, or when they steal something, they take that person outside of the tribe. The whole tribe gathers around them and they tell them everything beautiful about them, because they believe that that is what heals not only that person, but the tribe, the family, the foundation. And I love that. And I think that that's the way that we should be. That's what I would attain to. If my cornerstone is going to be love, I have to attain to that.
Absolutely. And so some of the conversation is about, let me look. There was a comment that I wanted to address. Oh, going into, I think Courtney said, like, you try and help them and then, exit if you have to. She says, I'll go in and try to draw them out, but I can't stay. That's very, very much, because you think about this human journey is a lot like being in an ocean. And if somebody is drowning and they're struggling and you're trying to save them, they will likely drown you too. And so sometimes people are just comfortable with their drowning, and you can you can throw them a lifeboat, you can throw them, but if they're not going to take it and they're not going to accept it, then you have to withdraw yourself from the situation, because otherwise you'll go down with them. And that is not a judgment thing. That is not something that is, it all comes down to the heart. You have to really, this is where having that ability to self-examine and look at your own heart, and to be discerning about your own energies and your own motives, and I believe having a circle of accountability. If I'm making moves that I feel like are I wouldn't say questionable, but that I'm like, I want to check, I have a whole council of people that I will talk to, that I will go to, and I'll be like, this is what this is. What do you, how do you feel about it? Can we talk through it? And I don't make moves in those ways, like significant things, without having first spoken with my, what I call my spiritual sisterhood, that will tell me the truth, even if I don't want to hear it. And that's really a really important place to be in. But recognizing, and I say this all the time, unconditional love does not mean unconditional relationship. There are people that I have unconditional love for that I will probably never speak to again. And it's not because I'm angry. It's just because the energy is just not what I want in my world. It's not what I want in my existence. I'm like, I look around at my space and my family and my children, myself. I'm like, I've worked hard to create this space. I've worked hard to bring this peace and to be who I am today. I'm not going to just let anybody with their lower level energies, their lower level human self, come marching through this space and muddy it up. I'm just not going to. Doesn't mean that I love you any less. It just means that I love me more.
Yes. That's it. I love me more. Yes. And we can do it lovingly. We don't have to be abrasive or be the bull in the china shop. And I do understand there are times that feels really good, and there are times that it's warranted. But we have a choice. How are we going to do it? Are we going to do it from a point of love and compassion? Or are we going to do it to hurt the other person, where the intent is to hurt the other person? We get to choose how we do it. I think Annette and I had this conversation about people that are on Facebook and what you're aligned to and what you're not. You can unfriend people or unfollow people and still love them. Guess what? Can you believe it? It can be done. And so there are people that I love dearly, dearly, but I've had to unfollow them, not out of judgment, but because of what's being posted. When I read it, it constricts me. It constricts my spirit instead of opening my heart up. It is where it doesn't vibe with me at all. It's not part of my existence. So it is, while some may look at, or that person may even look at it, that Trisha's not liking my stuff or whatever it may be. It's not because I don't love. It's because I just can't, it's not part of my vibe. I just can't allow it. So it's like, so I'm not liking your stuff. I don't like a lot of things, it doesn't mean that you're not in love. That's totally okay. And that's something that we have to understand, is that anything that causes us to constrict or pull back or shrink in is not an energy that we need to be in. We need to be in those spaces that encourage our expansion and encourage our full expression of who we are. And if that's not happening, it's totally fine to disconnect and to move away from that, and giving ourselves permission to not feel like we have to be everything to all people. There are people who just aren't gonna vibe with me, and that's totally fine. Like, I send them on their way with love and compassion and whatever. That's totally okay. We have to understand that everybody has their own experience, and everybody has, again, their own truth, and their truth and the way that they convey their truth may be different from me. And that's fine, because if somebody needs that delivery, somebody needs that way, but I don't, and that's okay. So one of the things that I just came up and I feel like I need to say
is this whole thing that people say this all the time. They'll be like, I'm just brutally honest. And to me, I hate that phrase. I mean, I despise that phrase, because to me, when somebody says I'm just brutally honest, what they're saying is I'm actually being cruel. And I'm using this as a guise to cover up my cruelty, because you can be perfectly honest with somebody without being brutal. So that would be a challenge to anybody who's watching that has that brutal, honest tendency. I am very much like straight to I cut to the core, but I'm not mean about it. I'm not cruel about it. There's nothing brutal about it. You can be like a surgeon that goes to the core with like gentleness and precision and still cuts out the cancer without, destroying everything around it. So,
it's interesting to me. That's like hearing somebody saying, I'm not racial, but, you're about to say the most racial thing ever. It's the same thing. To me, it's an excuse. Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So this is not about brutal honesty. I mean, you can be brutally honest with yourself. I would question why. I prefer compassionate honesty. I prefer like the love that's the honesty that's going to set people free, including yourself. It's like looking in the mirror and being like, wow, self, like that was not your best move. Like you kind of shit the bed on that one, but you know what? Let's try again tomorrow. Let's do a better job tomorrow. Let's examine where we went wrong, self, looking in the mirror. And this was where you got off track. This is what needs to be better. This is how you can nourish and care for yourself in this process. And it's very much like being honest with yourself. Like this is very much me being honest with me, but I don't have to be mean about it. I don't have to be brutal.
Right.
Why?
Right. Right. There's always a way to do everything that we do and be honest, to stick to our truth, to speak our truth. We can do from a point of compassion. I'm a big believer in that. I've been judged for that, saying that I'm too concerned what other people think. That's why I say things nicely. But no, I'm not. It's not that. It's just because that's how I am. I want to be healing even when I speak my truth. Even when I have to set boundaries, I want it still to be healing, not only for myself, but to the situation and to the whole, to the person that I'm speaking to. So absolutely, I agree with you.
It's funny because I've had that too, where people are like, "Oh, you tend to be like really kind in how you respond to people," and that they perceive it as this thing about like you care what people think. I'm like, I don't give a shit what people think about me. To be honest with you, like there are very few people who have earned the right to speak into my life and have it carry much value. Honestly, like that's just the truth. Is that you have to have earned the right to be able to say something to me and have it really be considered. So like a stranger on the internet, I don't really care. An acquaintance on the internet, probably not going to bother me a whole lot. I probably won't even think about it. Now, if Lori Green, who's watching, comes to me and says something, I'm going to listen because Lori's earned the right to be able to speak to that in me. You've earned that right, Trisha. That's the thing that we have to understand, is that me being delivering my corrections, or people saying like, you really handled that interaction with that person really kindly and beautifully. I'm like, it's not because I care about what they think about me. It's not going to bother me one way or another. What I care about is being true to who I am, and who I am. I prefer to be a compassionate person. So it's like that, like the Queen of Swords kind of, I have the sword of truth, but it doesn't mean I need to chop your head off with it. It means that I can, be gentle in that delivery.
I had a very wise man, somebody that I love very dearly, and I've known him since I was like 5 years old. When my father passed away, I knew I was driving back to Chicago, and I knew I was going into a hornet's nest, and it was going to be nasty. And one of the things that he said to me, he lives in England, and he messaged me, he goes, Trisha, he goes, I just want to give you this little bit of wisdom. He goes, keep your armor on, but put your sword down. Wow. And I was like, wow. And I've used that many times. I've said that to people, that keep your armor on, but put your sword down. Because we don't need to take the sword and cause more pain. And I had to realize why I was not allowed to go to my father's funeral, that I didn't need to take my sword out and go killing the enemy. I just needed to keep my armor on. And it actually was because I did that, I was able to heal some aspects of the family because I did that. So I think that is something beautiful for us to keep in mind, that there are times we can, and by the way, even when somebody attacks us, and we've all had this happen, I had it happen about 5 weeks ago, when somebody attacks us, we don't have to have a retort for everything. We don't have to go to battle. We can put our sword down and just let them, you know, if they're crossing boundaries and there are things that it's just extraordinarily dishonoring, of course you have to say something, but we don't have to destroy. We don't have to take our sword out.
Right. And we don't have to attend every battle that we're invited to. It's like sometimes you have to look at people. Sometimes when people like do those kinds of behaviors, like they try to attack you or whatnot, it's like, I kind of look at it like somebody having a tantrum. Like they're just acting out right now. And if you're a parent and you've had a kid that has a tantrum, like, you know, if you feed into it and if you like escalate with them, right, it just gets louder and everybody's upset. Whereas and I learned this even working in psychotherapy, if someone starts to get escalated and you kind of lower your volume and go down, like they have to quiet down to hear you. And so sometimes the best thing to do is just not to engage. It's just to be like, okay, you're having a tantrum, like you'll get over it eventually, or you won't and you'll carry it with you forever, whatever, that's your choice. But unless it has like some real major impact on your life, it's like, what's the point? It's no point in getting engaged in battles, because a lot of times it's just people wanting, that saying, like, negative attention is still attention. And so sometimes it's like, the most loving thing you can do is when someone's acting out in that way is to literally to just walk away and let them sit in their own, stew in their own stuff and deal with their own thing. Because as long as you're engaging, A, you're giving them your valuable time and energy, and B, you're still giving them the attention that they're craving, even though they're acting out and behaving in some not so positive ways to get it.
Right. This has been we've gone from your truth, but different aspects of truth. I love the direction that we've gone in. Lisa, so since we're here, why don't you just tell our viewers a little bit of what you do, how you can assist our viewers, and how they can get in contact with you?
Well, here on Facebook is always great. You can follow me or friend me. If you'd like. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I can post the links in there. I also do readings on YouTube, so tarot card readings and different oracle card readings. So I'll post a link you can follow there. I'm actually running a special right now on discounted readings for the next I don't know, I've sold a ton of them already, so I'm not sure how many are left, but anyway, that's what I do. And my work is all about helping people to ascend and to rise into divine love, to really source themselves from their connection with the divine, so they can go out and do the work that they're meant to do in the world, and to create the kinds of relationships that can come together collaboratively and change the world. So it's somewhat what the term that I like to use is teaching people how to live out their truth so they can engage in sacred activism. So that's work that's really connected to doing good in the world through your love for humanity.
I love that. Okay. So I just wanted to just remind everybody at the end of this, please go to sacreduprising.com. Like I had mentioned before, we do have the tickets available now for the Sacred Uprising Retreat, which is September 18th, 19th, and 20th in Watsonville, California at Mount Madonna. So please go there. Excited about the lineup that we have, and there's so many different, we're going to be doing some heavy marketing here coming up starting in the next couple of weeks. And so looking forward to seeing so many of you. Many of you have reached out wanting to be part of it, wanting to be attendees. We have tables where people can sell whatever modalities or whatever spiritual alignment information that you want to sell, whether it's crystals, we have elixirs, we have light, somebody's going to be doing light language on scrolls. We have many different things that are going to be sold there. So if you're interested in that, you can always reach out to me, message me on Facebook. This is the end of our videos for this week. As you guys know, we do videos only Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Next week, we have a gentleman who did initiation, a 3-hour initiation on me yesterday. His name is James Eisner. He's going to be here next week talking about what he does. We have Lori Green who will be talking. I will be doing a video on calling in the one. We have some of our new speakers who are going to be doing videos as well. So stay tuned. You can always go to Sacred Uprising on Facebook and see what the lineup is. And like I said before, all of our videos are uploaded to YouTube. Just go to Sacred Uprising on YouTube, look for the peony, and you can subscribe and always be informed when we have a new video. Dr. Lisa, it was awesome.
Thank you.
It's always
Thanks
awesome.
Here,
I love the conversations that we have. Thank you so much. And everyone have a great weekend. And just remember, infinite love is who you are. It's what you're created from. And an infinite love is where we're going back to. And, you know, when we talk about our core truth, that's what it is. Have a great week.
Bye,
we'll see you guys next week. All right. Bye.